Honestly, the only reason we do the stream, by the way, it's not like we get anybody watching. The only reason we do the stream is because it puts added pressure on Colin and myself. And we're big on tangents and going down rabbit holes because we're too curious and we don't
Hmm.
put enough guardrails on ourselves when we have unfettered access to time, basically.
That's
And
fair.
having the constraint of the stream really helps out with that.
On that note, we're live.
Well, now y'all know why we stream. This is more of a live recording than anything else.
Until we get popular. I think we're 307 subscribers now. That's actually pretty dang good progress.
I
I
personally
felt like it
told
today.
10,000 people about it, so there should be 10,000 people
Oh,
watching.
oh shit.
I am
That
so
means
happy and concerned actually that you know 10,000 people. First of all, because that shows immense like capacity for a human, for the human condition to know that many
Mm.
people. But I'm also
Yeah,
concerned 'cause that's just like numbers wise, there's probably some bad apples in those 10,000s.
true. Yeah. Yeah, statistically speaking, they'll leave themselves out.
self-eating garden theory.
It's usually how that works, right? It's like trickle down economics. Don't sort of self.
Oh god, trickle down economics could be a whole other topic that we cover because I think we all know what's really trickling down.
Yeah, we kind of covered it actually in the last episode where we talked about the neoliberal world order, um,
Mm,
and how it led to the tariff war or the trade war we're in now. That's where it all happened. It was Reagan and Thatcher, where it all started.
hmm.
I miss Teddy Roosevelt. We should bring him back.
Yeah, I got him on speed dial, bro.
Oh,
I'll hit him up.
He's
Yeah, when
he's
we're done
actually
here.
one of the 10,000 people that I invited. So
no
if he's not
shit.
here,
That's
I don't know what to tell you.
that's crazy. He's probably talking
Yeah.
to Stephen Hawking and figuring out how to travel through time to get to us.
That
Yeah.
Kelsey, it's the most corporate way to say that though, where you're like, I totally invited this person, but if they don't show up,
Yeah.
it is not my fault. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like
Shrugging
perfect,
Yeah.
responsibility.
perfect
I sent
corporate
the invite.
accountability.
Oh man, that's corporate behavior lesson one right there, isn't it? Just like immediately and as soon as possible, skirt responsibility to the guy in the cubicle next to you.
Yep,
Absolutely.
yep.
Absolutely. Have a paper trail of your evidence of your due diligence, but yeah, definitely shrug responsibility whenever possible.
CYA, cover your assets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of covering assets, do you want to do the rolling, or do you just
Yeah.
want to carry some momentum?
Let's dive in here. So let's paint a story that I think we've all had. This might be a little more dramatic, but I enjoy it. The door creaks as you step in. It hits you first. The recycled air, thick with the faint whiff of burnt coffee and the bitter undertone of stress. You never knew that stress has a scent, a feel, an awareness of its own. You do now. It clings to the walls, the carpet, the fluorescent buzz of overhead lights. You glance at motivational posters, all bold words and smiling faces, like a cover for something darker. Hard work pays off, one proclaims. Shoot for the stars and land amongst the clouds, another reads. Your shoes slap against the cheap linoleum as you pass a row of gray cubicles. Heads are down, fingers clack against keyboards in a rhythm of quiet desperation. Conversation is to be kept to work topics only. Chit chat is a waste of company time. Time theft, according to HR. You overhear a director confidently explaining to someone on the phone that this year's profits hit new records. Yet, somehow that's not exciting to you. You know you won't see a dime of it. They've dangled words like opportunity and potential in front of you before, baiting the hook. You bite down hard, hoping for a fair trade. Effort for stability. They didn't tell you the hook's barbed, and once you're on the line, there's no wriggling free. The raises shrink. In fact, when was the last time someone got a raise? You can't remember. The hours stretch. Seems like every week is another 60-hour work week because of emergencies? The smile you once wore slips into a grimace you hide behind cheap coffee and thin cubicle walls. You catch the echoes of hushed conversation in the conference room, blinds half drawn like a back alley deal, layoff whispers, the kind that ripple through the office like a low, rolling fog. You remember the last time. No names called, just an odd silence in the chats in office. Entire teams gone overnight, and then an explanation from the head honcho on how this is only due to extreme circumstances and won't need to happen again. There's been 3 layoffs in 1 year, though. You imagine the board and executives celebrate efficiency and cost control. You're confident that the company's Slack channel had 1,139 members in January. Now it's only 564. They tell you you're part of a family, that they've got your back, but when the numbers dip, you're just another expense. A line item in a spreadsheet. AI can replace you. Outsourced cheap labor is available. They'll preach loyalty, then slice you off like dead weight the instant they can. You pass the break room. Stale coffee and microwave popcorn masking the stench of exhaustion and quiet desperation. A hand-printed Employee of the Month flyer curls at the edges. Forgotten like the person it once celebrated. It reminds you of a wanted poster, actually. When did work start to feel like a prison? They make you forget that your time is your own, that the weight in your chest at the sound of your alarm isn't part of the deal you signed. They mold you into a company man, chip away at your edges until you're a perfect cog in their well-oiled machine. An underpaid, barely scraping by, well-oiled machine. Because if you're anything less, you will be replaced. You are a liability. And when you've given them everything, when the years blur together into a series of deadlines and pointless meetings, you'll wonder when it happened, when the collar snapped shut, when you traded your dreams for a paycheck that never stretched far enough. But by then, it's too late. You're already on the hook, and the line just keeps pulling tighter, and no one seems to be brave enough to talk about it. You don't know what to call it, but it's not a good feeling. And on that note, Kelsey, why don't you introduce yourself and define corporate grooming for us?
Holy smokes, that was so visceral. Oh my gosh. I'm like, that is the intro to the next Black Mirror season, please. Hello, my name is Kelsey, and I would define corporate brooming as the gradual indoctrination and psychological programming of workers or future workers to maximize output and homogeneity and minimize deviation and rebellious traits with the ultimate goal of driving profitability. Dun, dun, dun.
Recited just like we taught you.
This will be on the pop quiz later, and it will be on your yearly review.
I was going to say, is this part of my annual review?
Yes, absolutely. Even though you don't work with us yet, we'll get to the interview later.
Yeah.
You know, we just want to set the tone.
Absolutely, I understand. I'm willing to do 2 weeks of unpaid labor to prove my worthiness.
Oh, Charles, you hear that?
Well,
I told
we
you
were
we'd
only
find a
going
good
to ask you
candidate.
for one, but since you offered,
She insisted. Insisted, Charles.
we have a kitchen on staff. Food-based incentives. That's what we're offering.
Yes, I am very
There you
food
go.
motivated. Yeah, the free
Yeah, you
snack
can use our
keep you around.
microwave.
So, on these lovely notes, I would love to start off our fun conversation today with, when did you kind of realize that corporate brooming was a thing? When did you start to feel it and understand it's not really you?
I think at my first marketing job, I was still way too bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to realize what I was being subjected to. And I think it really wasn't until maybe the second agency that I worked at, that was a remote agency, that I really started to think, this is all a farce. This is all so strange. And I think it was because I had enough, I was removed enough from an actual environment, being in my own home and literally staring out my window and seeing the garden and the trees outside, and on my lunch breaks going outside and being grounded in nature and thinking, this is real, this is tangible, this is human life. And then going back to my computer and having that switch right back into this corporate jargon and meaningless deadlines, that it really started to feel like a lot of cognitive dissonance for me. And it took me a while to come to terms with that. And I think that's probably where the seed was planted and hasn't really come to fruition until maybe even this year, that I'm truly, really uncovering all the branches.
Sounds about right. Quick favor too. Just describe your work experience so people have an idea of where you come from. And then Charles, you and I should probably do the same just to refresh people.
Yeah, absolutely. So right out of college, well, I went to school for creative writing, had hopes and dreams of one day becoming an author, and still want to fulfill that someday. But I knew that, or I was programmed to believe that one could not make a living being a creative writer. And I was told that going into marketing or advertising was going to be a profitable endeavor. And I was recommended to look into copy editing and copywriting. So I applied for a bunch of jobs, found my way into a marketing agency right out of school, worked there for about 3 years, then went to a remote agency in the pharmaceutical industry. Made it there for, I think, about 8 months. Surprised I made it that long, honestly. And then from there went to a B2B SaaS company working in-house, and then jumped to full-time freelance. From there, I went into yet another corporate structure in office, again, in a hybrid environment. And I've been there about almost 2 years, but I just quit.
Hey, congratulations. That's the most unemployable thing we've had on this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll put in
just
that. Yeah. Audio in the background.
The one that we can all
Just-
hear from like
yeah.
the 90s.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you know the
Studio
one.
audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Straight from the stock library there. Which industry? It sounds like you worked in a few. Which industry do you think had the most brooming, the most cleaning activities?
Oh boy, this could get me in trouble. I feel like, Colin, you're probably gonna have the same answer as me. The dental industry is really weird. It's really funky because it's not quite medical. It is, but it's less regulated than pharma or traditional med device. And so because of that, we have this industry where people, I don't want to say too specific, but the clients in this industry almost have something to prove because they don't feel as subconsciously as legitimate as, you know, a like medical doctor or somebody in that field. So
It's like, oh, he's not a real doctor, he's a chiropractor kind of thing.
yeah, that kind of phenomenon. So I feel like that industry almost has something to prove, and they can get away with more because there's fewer regulations. So I think catering to that clientele puts you in a precarious position where you are susceptible to a lot of push and pull and having to take on a lot.
If I were to have had to have guessed, I would have guessed the 8-month stint in the pharma industry would have been the one.
It was, you know, I think I didn't say that one because it was more clear to me. And I think that's what's so
like you almost expected it more from that industry, so it wasn't as much of like a Jesus kind of thing.
Yeah. And I guess
it was
pharma,
less...
like they're not subtle necessarily.
Yeah, it's almost more insidious when you don't expect it, right? Because it just sneaks up on you. The corporate brooming sneaks up on you, so to speak, when you're at the ping pong table chugging some cold brew and you're like, this is great, and then all of a sudden you're crying after a one-on-one and you're thinking, hey, these things aren't adding up. Is this a good culture, or is my mental health deteriorating? Because these two things cannot be true at the same time, and in those environments it very much is. So I think that's why I answered that way, because the pharma industry is a little bit more black and white. There is a lot of boundaries that are just non-existent that should have been. And at that point in time, I had started exerting those boundaries, and I didn't really have a problem with it because it was a remote environment. I would literally just close my laptop and walk away.
Okay, so I want to carry that thread for a moment where you're talking about like the realizations of it. And Charles, you know, you kind of mentioned that you feel like because you're on the factory floor, you're doing these things, like you're kind of, you don't really have the same experience that like Kelsey and I have run into.
Oh God, no. So
But
let me cut you out there. I was almost about to, but I won't.
No, hear me out. I think you do experience it, but you're uniquely suited to push back on it. How many times has a freaking manager who doesn't run a factory line just said something wildly fucking stupid to you?
Not often.
Really?
But,
I'm impressed. Normally middle managers experience do that.
God, I'm trying to think of how to say this without sounding like it's going to sound. I was quite brutish in my younger days, especially when I was, like my 20s and I was cutting rebar. So when the corporate guys walked around, they generally were not led in my direction. The managers knew to steer clear, and honestly, the corporate guys didn't give a shit about my presence there. So they probably wouldn't have asked me a question anyway. But I just was not very approachable outwardly and purposefully. So no, I didn't have too many interactions. I did have an interaction one time where a coworker of mine had wrote "Un más cerveza por favor" on the back of my shirt. I was like 19. And one of the corporate guys just happened to be walking around that day, and he goes, "Turn your shirt inside out." And I was just like, "Yeah, you're probably right." So I
That's
did.
such a funny thing. Oh my god.
Yeah, but that was about it. So even as far as like the corporate sweeping goes in my manufacturing experience, it's not been crazy intense. There was one very relevant incident a long time ago where I was trying to start a union. I actually failed at the vote. But
Same.
me and three other guys on my shift actually had gotten the USW, the United Steelworkers, out of Indianapolis into our shop. We got into the vote and we failed, but it doesn't matter. During that process, I was, I was like, I don't want to say a secret agent, but it didn't seem like management knew that I was a part of it, let alone the fucking point of the spear. And my supervisor, my lead man, approached me one night and was like, "Hey, so you've been hearing whisperings about a union?" I was like, yeah, I have. He goes, "Well, do you know who started this?" Like, no, I can't say I do.
It's everyone.
And he goes, "Well, if you do, let me know." I was like, I will, Frankie, I will. And obviously I didn't.
Meanwhile, like 007 music is playing for you in the background this whole time.
And it wasn't the first time, or it wasn't the only time, rather, that he had approached me with this. And so I think it was a little bit of corporate cleanup because there's no way he didn't know that I was part of it. This was the supervisor that I would butt heads with all the time. There's no way he didn't know.
Yeah.
There's no way that he thought I was a corporate guy like him. And I say that charitably about him. He's a good guy and all that. So, not trying to besmirch him. Not that anyone knows who he is, but still, good guy and all that.
Frankie.
But at the time, he was just, a company guy, and I wasn't.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. I feel like
it's just like that slight coercion, right? Because like they knew that he was on my side, and it felt like they had sent him to sort of like soften me up, like, "Hey, this isn't the right thing to do. Don't be compassionate. Don't give a shit about your other coworkers. I know you guys are only making $11 an hour to break steel with other steel, but like,
it's like walking up to someone and being like, "Hey, you heard of any crime going on?" And then you flash them a gun or something, and it's like slightly intimidating, but also trying to imply like, "No, I'm with you."
Yeah, like I just pull open my CCTV stream that I got. I was like, "Yeah, actually, here you go. You just want to scroll through it."
There's Frankie.
Show you all the crime in New York City right now.
Yeah, it has subtitles, so you can tell he's talking about it. But like, so Kelsey, to your point too, one of the interesting things you brought up was like you recognized it in one place, it was transparent in other places. So far, the more we've been doing research for this topic, I'm struggling with kind of realizing how deep it goes. And once you start to pull at the layers, like you said, you keep finding branches. I feel like I keep pulling back layers on this frickin' onion, and I'm just like, oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. And it started with the obvious for me of like, don't talk about your salary. Oh, come on, bugger to that. Well, you can absolutely talk about your salary.
That's a sneaky one.
Yeah, and there's so much of it.
I didn't even think about that one.
There's so much of it is sneaky like that. Like that's one, or when did we trade our paid lunch breaks for an unpaid lunch breaks? That just happened in our worlds. Like,
yeah.
I was just going to take a moment to remind people that it is illegal for your employer to tell you that you cannot talk about your wage.
It is 110%. Even
just
if
want to remind everyone that.
Yeah.
Yep. If they confidently say otherwise, they are wrong. Take a note from Travis. Smile.
Especially for women in the workplace and non-cisgendered people, it's really important to ask those questions. Especially people like for me as a woman, I would ask my male counterparts what they're making.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't need to know that.
Most of us would probably be pretty open about that too. At least like in the manufacturing setting, we're pretty open about it.
Yeah.
but also like in a factory floor, you're kind of just making the same as everyone else. From what I've experienced, there's not too big of a variation, and if there is, it's not enough to like upset anyone. Like, it might be 75 cents here or there
Yeah.
per hour. Yeah, I don't know how it would be in your guys' scenarios, but
It gets weird because it's not like we produce a physical product in the sense you think of it. Like, we still produce products, we produce results and things like that, and campaigns and yada yada yada. But like, there's more room to take advantage of that, I think, than like a hard system like Urine, where you can produce X amount per day on average at the quality that is required, and that is good. That is what you need to do. Kelsey and I, a lot of our stuff was constantly like, well, actually, no, I can't speak for you, Kelsey. I have no fucking clue. On my end, I know my stuff was a lot of, well, it's really nice that you showed the gumption. This was a beautiful project that was way above your pay grade, but we're going to need to see proof that you can continuously do this, and can you really act like this? They took advantage of it, and it like, that's the point that I actually want to connect. Kelsey, when you're mentioning that, like, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I think you even saw when I started with Wondrous Agency, that was like when I was starting to get guarded. But like, I still believed I would find a place that would treat me well, and how many times people lied to my face about that.
And it's almost like you want to believe what they're saying is true, because that's what you're hoping to find, right? So that's the case for me, being that bright-eyed and bushy-tailed brand new green copywriter, and I almost feel that I owe them something for taking a chance on me.
Society taught you that this job
Big facts
theoretically
there.
shouldn't
Big
exist.
liability.
Yeah, and so you're expected to not just meet the job requirements, but then do the work of your superiors as well, to prove that you can do that job before you even do that job. Like, when I was going for senior copywriter, I had already been doing the work of a senior copywriter for over a year. And it was more so the case of like proving retroactively, like, this is all I've done.
Yeah.
This by definition no longer aligns with my current title.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's just not fair. It's just not fair.
What was the brooming answer to that when you brought up and made your case? Like, how did they turn it around in a way that wasn't just them admitting no, they don't want to?
Yeah, I think it's the same tried and true phrase that is, well, we expect you to go above and beyond. You're a high performer. And that's why this concept of quiet quitting is so wild, because it's literally like, it's seen as doing like less, but it's actually just fulfilling your job description, right?
Yeah.
Colin and I played a clip last week about it was a Gen Zer and a Boomer sitting back to back in different chairs, and they're talking about their work experiences and all this. One of them made an incredible point that why would anyone want to go above and beyond for companies that don't value them? You basically just said all of that, but the way that she put it was like, we don't even have a chance to be loyal if we wanted to. Like, we're fired the day we get hired.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if the younger generations are not going to experience the same sort of corporate manicuring that our people our age did.
Yeah.
It almost works out in corporations' favors to paint the younger generation as an enemy, because it'll give the millennials, the Gen Xers, and the boomers someone to be like, we're better than you, and that's what we can't do, of course.
Well, that is the entire playbook of the ruling class, the billionaires, the financiers, and the insurance CEOs. Like, they divide you amongst your cultures, your cultural alliance, because they realize that there's billions more of us than there are of them, and that's why we're sitting here having this conversation right now.
Yeah.
It's because people like us are fed up with it.
Yeah. I can't name a place. I think I was lucky and had 2 examples in hotel land where that wasn't really a thing, because they were very small properties. And again, it was a little more tied to that physical service, right? It wasn't abstract work. I wasn't pushing numbers or doing random things. Physical labor, basically, with some customer service attached. But otherwise, like, most places I've worked at have extreme brooming elements, and it's so casual that I don't even think that if you sat someone down and told them, they would believe you.
Yeah.
Because like managers
It's
get it.
it's insidious. Yeah. It's absolutely insidious. And it's
Is no, you're fine.
it's a form of gaslighting. That's what I'm coming back to, is that, for example, to use like the title change as the analogy or the example here, going after this title change, like, hey, this is what I've been doing, and this is what this aligns with this job title. You can put whatever industry, insert whatever job title, but the response to that is gaslighting. Is, well, we expect you to do that. Well, how can you prove that? Well, how can we expect you to continue this if you haven't demonstrated a propensity for subjugating yourself to a ton of hours unpaid?
I kind of used to have a mentality like that. I was a foreman at a fabrication shop a long time ago, and a couple of the guys were complaining about not making enough. I didn't make enough. I just didn't make enough noise about it back then, like I should have. I was more of a company guy back then still. And I would tell them, like, if you want to make $25 an hour, work like you're making $25 an hour. The money will come. That was a legitimate belief I had, though. That was a legitimate belief I had. Guess what never came for me? $25 fucking dollars an hour.
So I think it's
That's
going to be...
the...
Go for it, Kelsey.
Oh, I was going to say, that's the perfect example of corporate brooming. You are then doing their work for them because it is programmed in your brain to think with the company's best interest.
I didn't even think about this. I was a corporate pedicurist for like a year and a half at this place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I was the bad guy.
You were preaching. You were preaching the indoctrination.
You didn't even know. You're what we call in marketing world.
I was not only a victim, I was a preacher too. But isn't that generally how it goes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because if you no longer believe
dude,
that,
I like that. That hit hard, dude.
Yeah. If you no longer believe that, why are you doing it? That's a more scary realization than this is happening. It's the realization this has been happening the whole time. So like, I was clutching my heart because when you described that, I had flashbacks. These two conversations I will remember and regret for the rest of my fucking life. We can bleep that out because it is worth that expletive. I had one conversation with one of my friends when he joined the hospitality world, and I had just finished going through a phase where like a manager had put me to heel. Final written notice. You will behave. You will do the things I told you. If you are a minute late, you will be fired. If you have 5 o'clock shadow, you will be fired. And I was like, yes, sir. For the good of the hotel, sir, I will comply. And I remember talking to my friend and going, hey, real talk. You need to just comply. When they're being jerks, you cannot win. You have this spark in your eyes, and honestly, everyone that I've seen who is successful in this industry has eyes like mine, where this is it. This is the expression. Because you understand that there are just certain things you have to do. And that was my advice as a young supervisor, and it was encouraged by my manager.
Yikes.
You know what, though? He's incredibly self-aware. He knows he's dead behind the eyes.
I mean, that was the
silver lining, people. I'm trying to be charitable here.
I did. I said it and wasn't even aware of what I was saying until way later. And then, like, having that talk with the same friend, we're still good friends to this day, and he was like, yeah, it takes you a while to come around sometimes. And I'm like, oh my God, like, punch me or something. Like, and then I had another one where I verbatim told a gal who was always a high performer at a retail store, always kicking butt. She came to me and was like, what can I do to get to the next level? Like, I saw how you went up to, like, junior manager. How can I do this? And I was like, okay, here's what you need to start doing. You need to start clearing your schedule and being available whenever the store needs you. You need to basically be glued to your manager, be their main assistant person. What I was repeating was all of the platitudes and things that I did that were all part of the brooming experience that basically said, hey, Colin is compliant enough. We can now give him a position and he will actually purport and spread this like you were doing, Charles. And now I look back on that, I'm like, God damn, no. The advice I would have to both of them right now would be, you absolutely know your worth. You know if you are a good employee. They should treat you fairly, and you should not be fighting for a living wage right now.
Yeah.
This shit's scary. Holy shit. Yeah, it is.
Whatever. Whatever you believe in, like, a woman too, you know?
Yeah.
If it suits you.
This is the stuff, and I have a feeling we're just going to have more of these as we continue this conversation, where we're just going to oh
Well,
shit.
is there a scenario? Because I have an answer for this, and I want yours first. Is there a scenario where this type of behavior is like helpful or even justified, or at least justified?
From the managerial point of view?
Any of it. If you can find an angle that's justified and like serves a purpose, I'll say a purpose of good, so I'll qualify the purpose, like a purpose of good, however you define that.
Okay, Kelsey, check my logic on this, but I think the only time that I would find kind of not those conversations verbatim, those are never okay. But I do think there is a
No, that
place
was a
for
weird one.
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I drank the tea and didn't realize I was pouring it for people. Like
That's trickle down economics because it was just trickling out your mouth and then theirs.
trickle down trauma, TDT, trademark.
Yeah, we can trademark, copyright, register that. Huh?
I think there's like disciplinary situations. Like I had one guy lunge over a front desk and try to kill someone because literally verbatim, the guy he was trying to kill was like, "Hey, I did extra work for you to make your shift easier." And that guy went, "You insult my quality of work," and dove for him. That guy deserves some very strict conversations. But like, I don't think there's ever an excuse for brooming, haha, cancel me out. Because if we think about it, if you have to go to all this effort to create that false environment, you don't have a corporate culture. Like, you're trying to force people to do things. You're acting like a feudal warlord.
I think the way that I would twist this question, and maybe correct me if I'm missing the point here, but I think the only way, or the only example that this would be accepted is if you recognize that you're in this situation, you're in a toxic corporate environment, and you recognize that this is a means to an end, and you can play pretend for 8 hours a day and then go home. And if you are truly able to take that mask off and then use your salary to invest in your future in some capacity, or you have the ability and the bandwidth to live your life in the way that you want to be living your life, and it works for you, and you can separate the two, then I think play the corporate pawn for as long as you would like. But I don't think that, that doesn't excuse the fact that the brooming exists in the first place. I think that's more of an act of resistance and just tolerating it while you can to get what behooves you from it, I think. But I'm not sure if that fully answers the original question.
No, I was just looking. I was just looking for thoughts and insight because I have a bit of a heavy-handed take on it, I think.
Well, fire away.
So, arguably, not even arguably, objectively, society is, as we know it, has never been better or stronger. Even though it doesn't feel like it today, that is still a fact. Yeah. We wouldn't have been able to achieve that if it weren't for the strength and prosperity of cities. Well, the prosperity of cities was largely based on manufacturing. Manufacturing took a bit of, we'll call it training, and back in the day, they were quite ruthless about it. And they were paid like shit. And there was a line out the door to get these jobs. So you had to behave with a certain code of conduct right off the bat, just to maintain these jobs, just to get these jobs. And then with that code of conduct came people that acted a little bit more professional outside of that. So now we're talking this corporate sweep up, sort of spreading its tentacles out into actual society and creating a quote polite society that eventually culminated into something that, you think of like as the good old days, like the Mad Men era. I don't think of them as good old days, but when you think of like polite people or like suited people, like I'm trying to think of how to word that, but you know what I mean?
The man's man
upright society
town.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Keep us up with the Joneses. Always respectably dressed, all that kind of thing. I think that came straight from the 9 to 5, and people were presenting themselves a little bit differently in public because of that, and because there was more people around because the cities were getting more densely populated than ever. Second point to that is, without that level of corporate rearing, I don't think that any of the companies, even the humanitarian companies, could become what they've become and become as influential or as impactful in the same capacity across society. I think ultimately it could be seen. I'm not saying I see it this way, but I see an angle where it could be seen as like a necessary evil to improve sort of like the posture of the advanced economies.
I think you touched a key phrase that I really like. Sorry, I'm a digital marketer to kick in there for a minute.
No, it's
But
fine. I
like
sort of just did a
the
lot there.
the necessary evil, I think, is a really important part of this, because I think in every corporation there has always been a boogeyman presented to me as to why certain things couldn't be done. And that kind of goes down the whole path of this whole topic, right? Of, to your point, you have to behave a certain way in order to get the job you want. Dress for the job you want. That's some weird, broomy stuff.
Like,
Because
right. Yeah, dress for the job you want, not the job you have. I was hearing that when I was 7 years old.
same.
Mhm.
Like, that's
Same.
another one. That's a real sneaky one because you don't hear that at work. You hear that from your dad.
Well, you hear that from
Yeah.
school. They teach you this, and I guess my brain went down this whole path when you started describing in like industrialization and how this changed everything. I just kind of sat back and realized, like, whoa, hold on, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, as we're all very intimately familiar with currently.
Damn, stop looking at
Um,
my notes before the show, Colin.
I have to do
I'm gonna have to
something. I don't
change
take
that
notes
mind now.
before the show. It's not my fault you left your book open. um, but no. Okay, if I touch on this, we'll have some fun with it. This is just slightly different version of feudalism.
Mhm.
Feudal serfs were expected to do certain things. Think about it. They were tied to a specific plot of land, and they were told they couldn't leave. Now they only worked 150 days a year, so they got that on us. But they also had plague and other horrible things to worry about.
Yeah, they also
But
had to live through the winter without shoes. So,
and
you know, they
those
can keep it.
big fluffy puppies outside are called wolves, and not the neighbor's Malamute that loves you. But yeah, no, it's like we have a different version of that now. Our feudal lords have turned into petty dictators that are running companies and treating people poorly. And I don't think it's every company in the world, to be clear for the semantics, but there's a lot of groups in the United States. We encourage this warlike culture in our businesses that makes it acceptable to prep everyone for the war effort, which means we learn about this in school.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
The war jargon is what is like blowing the fact that you touched on that was what was blowing me away. I in my current position,
Oh, no.
the words war room and mandates and trenches and all of these like
Yeah.
terminologies is just so insidious and disgusting and
The
makes me
greater good.
nauseous.
Greater
There is
good.
an attempt
Sacrifice
to
yourself
bring
for the cause,
testosterone like
Yeah.
there is an attempt to like bring testosterone back into society, and I think language like that in the corporate space, is there any space for that matter, it doesn't have to be corporate, but any space if you make money, that feels weird. That feels weird. Like, hey bro, I'm just selling cars. I'm not like killing kids in Cambodia. This ain't
Yeah.
war.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus.
I've heard it in every business I've been in, actually. It's very
And
much so treated that way.
I'm wondering, is it a recent resurgence of these phrases, or has it always been the case, but I've just never been privy to it because I hadn't worked in this dry of a corporate environment before?
Oh, you know what's crazy actually is I've heard from another corporate worker that her boss was going on the warpath.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
So this is like circulating language then.
Yeah. And it
So-
seems like I unfortunately have to be on LinkedIn a lot, and I see a lot of people talk about war room,
Mhm.
mandates, war zone, trenches, battle, all these really violent words. And at my current place of employment, the war room is a windowless office, a conference room. It's a sorry
should be.
excuse for a conference room, but no windows, huge whiteboards with terrifying scribbles of numbers and figures
Oh, God.
that just like the targets that they're trying to target.
Yeah,
That could be another violent term.
hitting a target. Yeah.
Oh my god. And you just
So-
walk in there and it's almost like you're enveloped in this chaos and this
Yeah.
monstrosity, and you feel so small. You feel like you're on the front lines because this insurmountable enemy is on all sides of you, and you're just
Damn.
immersed in this war environment. And it really, like, it's bizarre because it feels, you know, those memes like, my body doesn't know the difference between getting on a call and a bear attacking me.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like when you exit that room. I felt like I'd aged 2 years every time I go into a war room meeting, and they're always 3 hours long. Hey,
Oh.
meetings don't
And you
ever
get-
need to be 3 hours.
You get 2 things done in that 3 hours too. Like there's
If you're
no
lucky.
progress.
And one of those
If
is
you're
drooling on
lucky.
my textbook.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I had a couple interesting thoughts. One was human society at a very large level. You see this in the Chinese empires. One language becomes the rich person's language, and then everyone lifts to rise and meet that, and then it's not cool to use that language anymore, so the rich swap their language to the other language. We see that with wine. That is going on right now in the continental United States. Wine used to be the hoity-toity thing to do. Now it's microbrews. Microbrews and beers were the common person's thing. So they're transitioning.
Whoa! Don't you be touching my microbrews now, Colin.
Fighting words.
I feel attacked right now. Come on, keep the
This-
gloves up.
All right.
We're in the
meet
war
me-
Hit below the
zone.
belt.
Yeah. We're in the war zone. Maybe
We're in the
war
trenches,
room.
son.
But so there's that, which makes me think when I was going through business school, there was a huge thing about business strategy. And we had to watch all sorts of things that these bigwigs from the 50s up through the 70s talking about things like this, where they were like, what gave us the competitive edge was that we acknowledged the economy was a battlefield. And then they started encouraging that we read treatises on war. I read Prussian manuals on how to efficiently deploy and go to war in business school. I read Sun Tzu's Art of War, mainly because I was interested, but also because it was recommended reading for managers.
What
The Art of
hell?
War, though, is a great read for anyone, honestly.
Oh, it is.
So
It's
is
fabulous.
the 5 Rings.
Yeah, add that to
I
the
get,
Art
I
of
get your
Peace.
point.
Yeah, the Art of Peace is a really good one. Morihei Ueshiba, the founder of Aikido, wrote it, and it's very similar, but the more kind resolutions to these things.
The Art of Peace, I didn't know existed. I had never heard of it, so apologies for that in advance because I'm
War
about
is
to
easier to
say
market.
something probably dumb. The Art of Peace sounds like a martial art from like 1984. 'Cause, you know, they had the
it is.
Ministry of Peace, but it was just the Ministry of War. By the way, the Department of Defense was called the Department of War until like 1946.
Yeah,
And then once we had bases all across the world, we could no longer be the Department of War. We had to be the Department of Defense because now we have bases there. We can't be the War Department.
Yeah.
We're defending you.
Man,
Whoa.
I knew this was going to be a good episode. This is good shit.
Dude, we're not even... Okay. Should we get into how I think this started?
Oh, I'm
If we're
down.
shooting for an hour mark, we got 15 minutes, and this is going to be a second. So
All right, buckle up, Kelsey. This is where it gets interesting.
Yeah, I'm ready. Beverage in hand. Let's go.
the Freemasons in ancient Egypt,
Perfect.
their handshake is said to date back to ancient Egypt, but they were formalized much later than that. But what they did, or at least what they say they did, was they helped formalize the first of like HR of sorts in Egypt. And Colin and I have talked about this briefly in the past, where they actually have recovered stone tablets. Their employee registries full of things like pay, salary, vacation days. Apparently, they got PTO in ancient Egypt.
Oh,
Listen
yeah.
up, employers. They
One
got
of-
fucking PTO in ancient Egypt.
One of the most common ones was my wife or daughter is bleeding. They would give time off for the other unit in that family to go take care of their loved ones. That's way
Yeah.
better.
That
Not
makes
bad.
sense in Egypt. I have 3 examples of what one tablet said.
Oh, hell yeah.
It was an illness, and then a scorpion sting, and one was mummifying their relatives. All 3 reasons that these people had missed work.
Mummifying is such
Pretty
a
cool
weird
for
thing to us.
mummification. Yeah, but it was just a Tuesday for them.
Yeah, no, they're
If
like,
they even had Tuesdays back then, I think they're using a different calendar.
hey boss, my
That's a whole other topic. We're not touching calendars today.
boss, my uncle died. I need to go mummify him. I'm sorry. Can I get the day off?
It's just like he's a real bitch, and he was kind of fat. He's going to take a while to mummify.
It's gonna take a while. We got a really good guy. Yeah, you know the one up the street on the Pharaohs Boulevard. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Jimmy's mummification.
Yeah. We got in last
The
minute.
last time I hired that guy, the brains got stuck halfway out the nose.
Well,
Oh well, you got to go for
The
you got to get
wrappings.
the upsells. He
Yeah.
really treats them nice and you spend that money.
Yeah,
That's
you gotta know a
too.
guy. I know Frankie on the inside.
Dang.
Yeah, you
Look
do.
it up. Give me the referral.
And anyway, the reason for the handshake was essentially to let other like Freemasons know that you were dependable, hardworking, and you knew what you were doing. And I have to imagine that with this handshake came some sort of code of conduct. So like right off the bat, ancient Egypt, I imagine there was some kind of training, some kind of like you carry yourself this way, your chin is this parallel to the ground or whatever. It's like you are a Freemason, you be proud, that kind of thing. You know, like say it with your chest kind of thing.
Is that where the firm handshake respect thing really comes from?
I have no idea, but the Freemasons' weird handshake, their secret handshake, where they hop around one leg and like smack each other a bunch. That is said, they say, to date back to ancient Egypt. So they say they have roots in ancient Egypt.
Okay.
So fast forwarding a bit, the Freemasons would go on to form the first of the craft guilds. The craft guilds would span a couple hundred years, but essentially these were like primitive unions. The craft guilds were initially started with the stonemasons. And they would go on to like, you know, woodworkers and blacksmiths, all these things. And with each guild came a strict set of requirements, right down to the tools you were able to use. And the guilds were essentially given the rules by the craftsmen of the area. And the craftsmen, from what I've been made to understand, were essentially the regional managers of the guilds. So you'd have like one craftsman per certain area, and they'd go around and tell you, no, you can't use that hammer. You have to use this hammer.
Jesus.
Pretty extreme standardization, but I don't know if it's grooming. And this is actually right about the time where I was like, is standardization grooming or is it something completely different? And I still haven't come up to an answer with that, but
yeah,
that's an answer we can come up to later. So from the craft guilds, we go into employers. Now, all of a sudden, people are moving into towns and the towns are getting bigger. The craft guilds are expanding. They're splintering off into more specific niches, more specialized woodworking. For instance, I work with mahogany, he works with maple. Not the same thing, right? But like it's the same thing. And what this eventually led to was a big labor shortage. So let's see here. When the guilds fell apart, they conglomerated into the merchant guilds, where the primary focus was to make money and not to make quality goods. And this was back in the we're talking 13 to 1700s. So back then, the financiers were taking over labor.
So this almost sounds like maybe it didn't start off as something directly brooming related, but sounds like the industry as a whole took a very traumatic shock. They did a very logical thing by saying like, okay, if we focus on money, we will minimize our risk of that ever happening again. But then that kind of sets up the perfect environment for someone selfish and greedy to take over at the top. And I don't think someone sits down and consciously does this unless they're really messed up in the head, so there's a non-zero chance there's those people. But like, I could see people over time just slowly trying to convince others, and it creates the pattern. It's like the evolution of the crab. Yeah. It just comes back to the same thing because that's the most effective way to be brutal.
It's like the spirit of the business, almost. Like it just demands that of you, and you comply. No one around you is willingly complying. You just...
Dragon sickness, greed. Yeah.
Yeah. This is just proving my point that I truly wholeheartedly believe that the only ethical economy is an agrarian-based barter economy. But if we could have a barter economy with Wi-Fi, that would be fantastic. That would be my utopia.
Unfortunately, you would have to get a hold of Sir Elon, President Elon, King Elon, for that, because he's the only one with satellite internet at the moment that you can get worldwide.
We would have our little hobbit hovels, and he would be in the distance with a freaking Tower of Sauron with the eye watching us all the time. But it's a big X. Like...
Yeah.
C to the M to the X. Exhibit. So when the craft guilds fell apart, employment took up. And this meant that workers, journeymen, apprentices who all had distinguished careers and skills, and they were once highly paid, were now just out there looking for someone to hire them. So now their value is immediately diminished, because now they're just all out there looking for a job. It's the labor.
That's what we're doing now.
Oversupply, labor saturation. Right. This led into the Industrial Revolution. And this is very high level. I'm not a historian, but this is what I come up with.
Wait. Industrial Revolution. Revolutionary. It's a war term.
and things were bad.
Yeah.
By the way, the employment, I bring that up. I forgot to mention this, but the reason that this is an important piece, an important step in the story is because when the labor market was saturated, you had to comply in order to maintain your job. We're right back. Actually, this is
Yeah.
pretty much the same sort of vibe that came with the Industrial Revolution because it was white people working in the factories, because the slaves were in the fields working there, so they didn't have free labor for the factories, because with the factories came an increased demand in the sharecrops, in the field crops.
Mm.
So what they did was they hired people, the white people, the whites, and their children, because these machineries, which by the way came around like late 1700s in Britain.
Yeah, it was pretty early.
The factory's been around for 350 years. That's insane to me. That is absolutely insane. But they used to use children to get into these machines, and
Hey, in
small
Florida,
access points
they're
and all that
doing it
stuff.
again.
And you can imagine where their hands and fingers went, quite literally went and were going. And through violence and other means, the workers had finally convinced the government to do something about this. So that brings us to public schools.
Yeah.
The Industrial Revolution is more of a stepping stone, so I'm just going to breeze over that. Now we're in public schools. Because once the Industrial Revolution really took off, people had to go to work. So now their kids are just like running around, where before the kids were working in the fields along with the parents. Now the parents are in the factories and the kids are just running the streets. So now you have to put them somewhere. The first public schools in the United States were in Massachusetts in the 1600s, but it was only a couple here and there. They wouldn't become widespread until the 1870s. And in 1802, legislation was presented in the British Parliament that lowered the maximum hours children could work, and that would eventually mature into legislation that would just outright ban child labor.
Except in Florida.
So, well, we don't talk about Florida, right? We avoid talking about Florida. It'll make me sad.
That's fair. You live
live
there.
here.
I'm sorry. Didn't tell you that, Kelsey. Surprise.
I don't want to cry about where I live, Colin.
I'm sorry. I'll behave.
Sorry you don't live in California.
Kelsey, this is why Californians have a reputation, man. I have to deal with this in upstate New York.
I moved here because I didn't like having Illinois plates in my car. I had to explain that every time I went somewhere. Anyway, so now Horace Mann, Massachusetts senator, went on to observe the Prussian school system in 1837. He brought the idea back to influential people in the United States, where it was adopted soon after. However, the Prussian model was not benevolent. It was to churn out loyal, intelligent, obedient soldiers.
Bingo.
It gets weirder.
Hey, I had to read a Prussian manual. Remember that part of the story?
Oh, dude, it took quite a bit of self-restraint to not just go, I fucking knew it. So I think it's where the rubber meets the road, because I have several points here of how I think they condition us through this school system. One, they get us early. They take us away from our parents at a really young age, and they get us away from people who would otherwise protect us from, quote, indoctrinating ideas. They standardize the testing, trying to get you to learn all the same things so that when you get out into the real world, you're just as efficient and useful as the next guy. They have bells and alarms that essentially train you when to be hungry. And I don't know about you, but my first recess was something like 2 or 3 hours into the day. That's about when my first break is now.
11 a.m. I had never put that together.
Yeah. And then they condition you for boredom. Look, I have a bit of a hot take with ADD. I've been diagnosed with ADD, and I think it's more of a side effect of being trapped in a society that doesn't allow us to do the things we're supposed to do as humans. Like I said earlier, children were in the fields until the 1800s. Now we're just made to sit and stare at a wall. So we've been conditioned to sit in a cubicle from 5 years old, give or take. And then they restrict playtimes because control your emotions, save that for recess.
Yes, you technically have 2 10-minute breaks, but you really should be working during that time anyway. It's a paid break.
Yeah.
And then just like one smaller point is the standing in line thing. It's an appeal to authority. If you're standing in line, the person not in line is in charge, period. The appeal to authority thing goes obvious, as you can imagine, about as deep as you want to take it. right down to like, if I were talking right now and someone shut the lights off, I'd shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, because during lunchtime in grade school, when we were being loud, the teachers would shut the lights off and everyone would just be quiet. And we were taught that. We were taught that when the lights go out, you be quiet.
But also, we just breezed over another military reference. The person who stands, if you're all in a line and someone in front of you is speaking to you, that is a standard military formation.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Ew.
stick with me a little bit here. This is where it gets sticky. All right, this is where it gets weird.
It's already gross sticky.
It's getting sticky.
Yeah, but you know how I build these up, Colin. Go for this ride with me, just one more time. Horace Ride was able to institute the Prussian model by becoming friendly
names
with
are real.
influential people including John D. Rockefeller.
Bum, ba, da, bum.
Oh god.
And from the start, the public school system was designed to stifle individualism in preference for uniformity. In fact, these feel more capitalistic or Orwellian.
Holy shit.
It's just to standardize all humans, and this is blatant grooming.
That's
Yeah.
that's Kelsey's definition.
Yeah,
Even
that's so funny. We came up with these definitions completely siloed. Like, I did not know, and you did not know what I was going to say. And the fact that there is so much crossover and overlap is quite honestly chilling.
Yeah, it's creepy. Holy
Yeah.
shit.
Dude, it gets creepier.
Oh, okay.
Shit. All right, let's go.
This is where it all comes together, my friends. I'm sure some of you out there might be wondering, well, we started with the Freemasons in ancient Egypt and we wound up with today and we're just staring at walls. What the fuck? The Freemasons were formalized in 1717. The Prussian model was founded by King Frederick William I in, wait for it, 1717.
What?
There's a certain point where you can argue coincidence, but there's a non-zero chance that's directly related.
Yeah. Huh.
So this is
Wow.
what I come on to do. Basically, every show I try to make a weird connection like this, and I usually find one, or I often find one, and I present it to Colin, and then I just wait for 15 seconds of silence
While we process. Wow.
I'm not a believer in coincidences, but these
Yeah.
be coincidencing. I'll tell you what.
Yeah. And
No.
as you were talking about all of this, these systems of structure with like the bell schedule and when you take your first break and all of this, and it's bringing me back to thinking about like the moralization of being a morning person, that we are incentivized to wake up early, do our work early, and our day doesn't belong to us based on a 24-hour cycle, based on the men's hormone levels, because you all have a 24-hour clock that your hormones and the chemicals in your body refresh every 24 hours. Whereas a woman, my cycle is a month-long cycle, right? And so these peaks of productivity on the day-to-day basis align with the male, what's the word I'm looking for? Body clock.
Yeah.
The male clock, the male cycle. And women just don't fit in that. We're like shoehorned in, and we are expected to perform with the male's cycle, even though that's not how our bodies function. And I definitely am not thinking of the right words to explain this properly, but it made me think of like that bell schedule and being a morning person. And I think this was even touched on is humans, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. And I think you were talking about like ADHD in the workplace. And this is also, I think, relevant because you can make the case that the people who aren't morning people, the people who are more productive at night or have better ideas at night, more creative at night, we were the people who would be tending to the fire or playing watchdog in the evenings. And there's all a place in society, but we're incentivized to shrug that off and conform.
Is it
to be profitable?
Is it?
I'm actually
So this is a very tinfoil hat theory, but is this all just kind of an accidental, natural result of our evolution? We start off, to your point, people watching over the village at night, tending the fires. So we have our night owls, we have our morning people. In teenage guys, that tends to shift out eventually. So you'd have your young hunting warrior class ready to go at night, basically. It's a benefit to your society. But to that point, it probably started as protect from predators, turned into protect from other humans. It's almost a natural extension of the male psyche and logic at that point, which almost everything is dictated on. Sorry, Kelsey, I didn't do it, not my fault. It's stupid.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
did all this stuff just get to the point, and then like the elite just kind of look around and be like, did you know if we do this, we could make them do this? Because like they absolutely can. You know, they're people smart enough.
I bet actually. I'm glad I let you go too, because you touched on the exact thing I was going to bring up. So it seems like we're all just riding the same wave right now.
One brain
But
cell. Just
I'm glad I can share my brain cell with you guys.
Yeah. Collective brain cell.
Damn it, where was I going with that?
kind of like a weird natural
told you guys,
cycle that
one
led
brain
up
cell.
to
Evolution. Is it like, that's my question, is like, is this a vestige of evolution, or is this indicative of something insidious that's taking place in society?
I think it's
Is
that
this
one now.
sexism and racism, or is this just a vestige of evolution?
Honestly, I think this is just our turn. Society's always gone through turns, especially the Western civilizations. You go through about 250-year cycles where they just fucking turn over. We're at year like 248, so
Oh shit, you're right.
it's kind of just our turn, I think.
Yeah, we're ahead of
Yeah.
schedule. Good for
And
us.
we're right on schedule. We're right on schedule. AI might save me, right?
What did you say?
Right?
AI might
AI
save
might save me.
Oh, AI. Oh my god.
I cuss at mine. I'm not safe. Oh my
Yeah, I
god.
had
Apparently,
so
according to Sam Altman, people saying please and thank you to ChatGPT is costing them millions of dollars a month in their electric bills.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been seeing that one go around too.
Huh.
Dude, this is, yeah, I knew this was going to
Internet
be a fun
article
one.
loading. The real price of pleasantries. That's a blog for you.
That does appease to my SEO side.
Yes.
Dang. Yeah, dude, this was going to be an interesting one, but this definitely, I have a firm belief that when we're all talking slightly different topics, but we all come to same conclusions individually, that's not a coincidence. Like, I even think people who don't truly understand what's going on understand at some level what's going on. Like, if you talk, it's like the political divide. There are extremists, yes. But if you talk to people, we usually boil down to core points: corrupt government, wishing the work world was kinder and better to us, want to have more money, take care of the veterans. It's all pretty similar. This seems like one of those things.
Yeah.
What do you want to be when you grow up? What's your dream job?
Fuck.
I know. I have a perfect answer. I want to be a duck farmer.
Hey, that
You want to
makes
be a
some
fuck
money.
farmer? What is that?
I don't do that to my ducks.
Oh, Jesus.
Not since the incident.
Yeah.
Oh my god. No, I just want to be more in nature. I think that's kind of the through line for me. That's what I want to be when I grow up.
Same.
It's more connected.
Same. There's something peaceful about it. Like, being able to go outside.
I want
and-
to figure out
Yeah.
telepathy.
Oh, that'd be
Nice.
I think I'm close.
That'd be
Yeah, I think I'm
Yeah.
close.
Read
I
my
think
mind.
so, given by the fact that you basically verbatim told my definition back to me.
Pre-prepared. An
yeah.
hour later.
Yeah. It's pretty
That's
Chris
right.
Angel mind freak. Like, you made me write the definition through you.
You want to hear? You want to hear a mind? You want me to write the definition?
Was this your card?
Exactly. That is exactly. Colin,
You want
you
to
just
hear?
read my mind tip.
You want to hear a real mind freak? And if we want, we could end it here because this is a fun little tidbit, completely unrelated. But Joaquin Phoenix grew up in a cult. His original name was Leif. I don't remember what his last name was. It doesn't matter. It was not Phoenix. When he changed his name and went to Hollywood, he changed it to Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
A new person, Walking Phoenix.
Oh.
Oh, that's smart. That's smart.
And I want to know if I'm the only one that's ever caught on to that.
No, I
I've
like that.
never thought of that before. That's cool.
Oh, I love it. But before we go, we should do our exit interview game here. So,
Absolutely.
are we
This
ready
will
I'll come
help
up with a
prep
theme
me.
song for that. I'll grab the ukulele and just.
It's like Blue's
It's more of a-
Clues. Like,
more of a
Yeah.
band. Oh, dude, Steve from Blue's Clues did a podcast with Rainn Wilson. I
Oh,
haven't watched it
cool.
yet. I'm going.
Okay, so to summarize this game real quick, so you understand the game we're playing and how we're doing it. Kelsey, we're going to ask you some standard job interview questions, one of which you provided based on your own experience of just dumb questions that come up in interviews. And we're going to role play it out just as, you're interviewing for a job with us at the Unemployable Life. But we want your real answers to these questions. Not the nice ones, not the kind ones, we want the sassy ones. We can bleep out whatever needs to be bleeped out. Are you ready?
If we did.
I am ready. Yes.
All right.
Lay it on.
So, I guess the most important thing is, Charles and I were talking about what we really want in an ideal employee at the Employable Life.
We sure were.
Absolutely. This is,
I like my coffee cold.
you've seen this through this whole thing. One brain cell. One brain cell between the two of us. Powerful brain cell. Some say the best. Anyway,
Tremendous.
we really want to know.
I never want to do that again. I am sorry, Colin. I know you're trying to
Thank
be
you,
like,
please.
on the job here, but that was the first and last time I ever make that motion.
Oh, no, it's
got
okay,
busy.
It's okay, Charles. There's always the professional one in the relationship. Business partner. Business partner.
You know what? I've had it with you. I'm going to my basement.
He gets like this. I'm sorry. Anyway, back to the interview. Why do you want this job?
Oh my god. Okay, you said you want the real
The
answer.
real answer, unfiltered.
Play it on us.
I have bills.
I think if we had like the most common ones, that would be there. Maybe we start tracking this.
Yes.
Oh, we're definitely going to start tracking them.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And if you said that in a real interview, they'd be like, "So it's just about the money to you? You're not passionate."
It literally is. It literally is. That's
Like,
what this
literally.
whole
No, I
transaction
actually
is.
wake up every day and I want to go and make you richer. That's literally my only prerogative when I wake up at 5 a.m.
I actually said this verbatim in the workplace the other day. I knew from a young age that I wanted to drive shareholder revenue when I was a little girl.
Somewhere there's a shareholder just.
Yeah.
She's gonna go places. Make her a director.
I'm pretty sure it was
That's the
understood.
one.
Yes. Oh my god.
Oh God. All right. Next up,
Anyway.
what are you passionate about?
Oh, I already answered this. Driving shareholder revenue.
Oh, that was the
Wow,
true
you're great
version.
at this. I think you might
Yeah.
be clarifying.
I'm repeating myself. No. Ooh, if I'm really answering this, I'm passionate about deprogramming my coworkers.
Ooh,
Damn,
sick.
those are fighting words.
How do you
but I
do
love
it?
it. Yeah.
By being a personality hire, by being loud about my boundaries and advocating for them to also uphold their boundaries. And gossiping. Honestly, that is one of the best ways to make sure that people
Yes.
know what's happening in a workplace. It might sound
That's crazy.
petty, but yeah, there's something insidious. I keep using the word insidious today, but truly, about the villainization of gossiping and how it's,
Yes.
girly or looked down upon, and
It's
women are
only
made fun of for doing that. And
if you're a man and you do it, you're a rat. You rat
Yeah.
out your colleagues.
Yeah, I was actually going to
Exactly.
say, like, I actually don't gossip at all, but I do strongly advocate for their agency and to understand that this job is replaceable,
Yeah.
to act accordingly. Like,
Yeah.
this is their future, but this is your job. Do not take this job home with you like that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah,
Gossip, actually, this is like a thing I'm really firm on in my world. Gossip is a natural ecosystem. It can get out of hand, but it is literally how we socially vet and check each other and make sure we're all on the same team. It's how we make sure that if
Yeah.
we're a tribe running around gathering fruits and hunting, Someone's not going to steal shit because I can go,
Yeah.
that's weird. I had a mammoth hunk there and it's gone. Oh, I saw so-and-so over there an
Yeah.
hour ago. That's funny. It's a good thing as long as it doesn't get out of hand. We've all know that one person who like is the gossip queen and somehow like has more power in the company than the executive, and you're just like,
Yeah. It's a social contract. Yeah, you're so right.
yeah. And Charles, I mean, gossiping, some of the more tame gossiping I've done is just talking to people about wages. Hey, what do you get paid? This much?
Oh, I do that a lot. Yeah. The one thing I will add to Kelsey's list there is that I do all those things, minus the gossip mostly, because feels icky. But also, I just make sure I'm damn good at my job because I am loud. I'm the loudest dude on the floor. Like, I'm the first one to go. Like, I actually got into a shouting match not that long ago with the owner of the place. I just told him, we need more fucking money, dude. And then we had a tiff, and then he went on about his day. But because I'm valuable, like legitimately valuable there, what's he going to do?
Yeah.
You know, like he knows I'm right, first of all. If I'm right and I'm good at my job, I'm probably pretty safe. And if I'm not, that's not a place I want to work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is why it's to the
This
advantage.
is quickly turning into something other than an exit interview, I guess.
Okay. Final note on this, I'll go to the next pieces. That's also why, though, this market is to the advantage of every employer who wants to be shitty to their team, because, well, now I can get rid of somebody who's loud and vocal and find somebody probably for cheaper because they're desperate right now because the economy's bad, which makes me wonder about some of the stuff that's going on. But anyway, speaking of such things, Kelsey, what are your strengths?
Well, I am just so dedicated to my work, and I never sleep. So
okay.
I'm online all the time.
Oh,
That's the
perfect.
fake answer. My strengths are knowing how to work efficiently in a visible way. And if we're talking about a corporate strength, it requires visible efficiency so that on the back end you can live your life, right? Like you have to peacock so that you're buying yourself a little bit of a buffer.
Yeah. We've been calling that corporate kabuki because it does feel like, the employer shows up and you're like,
Yep.
That's like
Exactly.
it's like you're working in corporate language.
Yes.
Yeah. Because we all know that it doesn't take long to do really good work. It just takes skill. That's the point of a skilled trade. We're all in skilled trades technically. Like,
it's just cosplaying, and that's what I tell anybody who's not in the industry. They're like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, I am a cosplayer. I cosplay as an engaged employee in a corporate setting. That's all I do. I show up in my little slacks and running shoes so I can go on all the walking meetings. Hey, that's really ableist, by the way, but let's get into that another time.
That's how she invites herself back, by the way.
Yeah.
What is it self-grooming? Damn it, what was the phrase? You just said it. There was a phrase in there that made me think, oh fuck, is that self-grooming?
Cosplaying as an engaged employee.
I think if you're aware of it.
No, it's a more commonly used phrase. It doesn't matter. The moment's lost.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. On that note.
But yeah, go for it.
What are your weaknesses?
Oh man. My weaknesses, I just give too much. That's the fake answer.
To the company, right?
But truly my weakness, I think, in a corporate environment is that I tend to be a people pleaser. Again, that just goes back to grooming from early on, and letting these ideals get to me, really. And it's harder, and it's a learned skill. Self-worth is a muscle, and it is one that you are incentivized to forget to work out in a corporate structure. 110%. So that's something I'm working on.
I can even make this more cheeky and say, if I ask you the question again from the lens of, do you even think this is an appropriate question for someone to ask in an interview for a job? Like, what are your weaknesses?
No.
Tell me about your life.
No. Yeah. Because you then are so put on the spot to like almost like lay yourself on the floor and just be like, oh, I recognize I'm a flawed human, please.
Yeah.
It's putting you in a really awkward power dynamic, that whole question in and of itself.
Yeah. It'd be like if I just got in an interview with Charles and went, "Hey, be vulnerable."
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so weird.
Sometimes I cry when I watch Homeward Bound.
Mm-hmm.
I do too.
And then
it's okay.
it's now making me question. I'm like, is this an inroad for trauma bonding?
Maybe. I
Because
feel like
now
depends on
we
the
have
manager.
this, yeah, now we have this connection. I know your weaknesses. I know how you see yourself. Now I
Yeah.
can pit you against that, or can
Yeah.
pit that against you.
Well, I guess also, like, are you willing to let me cross this social boundary in this interview?
Right.
Like,
Yes.
it's a weird test, which also
Yeah.
feels like brooming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
Well, on that note, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Living by a lake in Norway, please.
Norway. Oh, it's so cold up there,
That'd be so
though.
pretty, though.
I love the cold. I love the snow.
Oh no.
That's my Nordic accent. My Danish relatives would be shocked and appalled at that.
Tell them to
Well, it's because
Yeah.
you didn't put enough of Durgens in there.
Oh, no.
It's a very
Right,
sing-songy accent.
That's the Swedish, not the Danish.
Oh.
What's the difference?
There's
that
a
racist?
lot of contention between the Swedes and the Danes. The Danes say that the Swedes are the ones that go durga durga durga, but the Swedes say the Danes are the ones that go durga durga durga.
So they both go Durgen.
Yes, they both sound very similar. Their languages are
Aw.
based in very similar roots, but yeah.
like-
Anyway,
I like
They
that those
all
countries.
Svens.
There's like those little countries there, and then there's like this little island in between them too. That's just like the straight up rednecks of both of them, and they know it,
Yeah.
and they're just like, "That's how we roll." Oh,
yeah,
God.
Yeah. good stuff.
And then to wrap it up, we're going to use your own lovely
Oh,
item
sweet.
that you provided. So give me an example of when you went above and beyond the Call of Duty.
I'm really ashamed of this one. Unfortunately, there was a time where this is a task that was not in my job description as a content marketing associate.
Oh God.
I was hired to write content, and I raised my hand because I thought it would look good for a promotion to build a whole new website for a contractor that we had hired on Webflow. And I stayed up until midnight trying to get the CSS and the CMS to work. And yeah. So I think that was a perfect example of me going above and beyond the Call of Duty to get a project done and cross the finish line. Guess what? Do we still use that website? No.
And did you see any financial benefit from doing it?
No. No, it was a complete waste of time.
And how do you feel
Yeah.
about that question being asked in general in interviews too?
It's predatory, honestly. It is. It's another example of, let me move the needle. Let me see and test the waters. How much am I going to be able to abuse this person? Is this candidate a willing participant in this corporate ecosystem where we can manipulate and squeeze them for all they're worth? Or are they going to be somebody who resists? And just the posing of the question itself necessitates one type of response, right? By saying, hey, give me an example of a time you went above and beyond. It is assumed that there is a time where you went above and beyond. And so you are then inclined to reply and give up one of those examples versus there's no room for a negative response, right? There's no room like, I actually can't think of that. Like you're incentivized to even make one up or,
Oof.
Answer to the
Right.
affirmative. There is no alternative because that's all there is.
Never thought of it that
Yeah.
way.
If you've only ever done your job description duties, you probably have never gone above and beyond because it's not
Right.
in your job description to do so. It's in your job description to show up,
Right.
do your job, go home.
I could hear how old manager me in Hotel Land before I kind of started to like see through the veil, so to speak, and be like, wait, no. There's an evolved way to do this.
Yeah.
I could see how I could be like, wow, I really liked that candidate, but Kelsey didn't have an answer for that question, and that's just weird. In hotels, you have to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah. Ooh.
Ugh.
It's the thing I'm a hat
Yeah.
person.
Well, that concludes our interview. We'll take some time and review it with the folks behind the scenes, and we'll get back to you. We might have like a working project or something.
Oh, sure,
To
yeah.
do. Yeah.
Oh my God, can we talk about that as well? Unpaid labor in the interview process is wild.
Yeah, if you could just draft a 6-month content plan for me, just so I could go ahead and review it. In fact, here's a client to use as an example, and I'd like to be able to actually use these.
Perfect.
Done for me in 3 days.
Yep, you got it. I'll deliver in 2.
Oh,
Yeah,
perfect.
and it doesn't. We're not looking for a template. We're looking for something fully actionable
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
on day one, immediately actionable.
That you can take from me and implement without my input.
Yeah.
Well, we just need to make sure that you are competent.
Yeah,
Right.
That's all.
Yeah.
Right.
This is just a competency test, like Charles said. Yeah.
Right.
It's we trust you. We think you're going to be a great fit for the company.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just need the.
Well, you just can never be too careful these days. You got to make sure you do good
yeah.
work. You got to make sure you cross your T's and dot your lowercase J's.
Yeah.
Totally.
We don't want to end up with like that Frankie guy, right? Oh man, that was the time. Anyway,
Yeah,
I shouldn't even say
or
it's HR
Frankie,
people.
am I right?
Oh my God. Don't spend more than 2 hours on it, right?
Well, we'd encourage you to spend as much time as you need to. Accuracy.
But working efficiently is encouraged.
Yes.
But spend more time than you need to. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, all these.
At least double
Well,
check
hold
it.
on. Are we interviewing you or are you interviewing me? You sound like you're hired already.
That was a huge mind-blowing moment for me when and this is commonplace knowledge now, but that when you're in an interview, you're interviewing the company as much as the company's interviewing you.
Yeah.
That's something they don't tell you early enough in life.
Mm-hmm.
No one told it to me. It was a mentor who actually, he did tell me. He pulled me aside and like whispered it in my ear of like, this is the secret to success.
Yeah.
You're interviewing them.
And it puts you in this position of power as well, which exudes naturally confidence.
Yeah.
Thus making you appear to be a better candidate too. So it's really a cheat code.
Hell yeah.
And it's easy to come off that way just by asking good questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like right at the end of the interview, they're always like, "So you have any questions for us?" And it's like, "Well, as a matter of fact, I see your blah, 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 blah," and you rattle off some acronyms.
Yeah.
And you go in your chart. Look, I see a little dip there. It's like, I just want to know what you is there a plan to take care of that, or like, how do you guys plan on working around this? My little cheat code question, getting into a factory. If you're looking for a good one, they go to say, "Hey, any questions?" You go, "Yeah. What do you do in the case of an audit?" And if their answer starts with anything except for an immediate, "Well, here's what we do." If they go, no, get the fuck out of there so fast. Get out of there so fast.
Why would we be audited? Are you auditing us?
No, well, we get no, like you do like certification audits and stuff for third-party certifications for sanitation reasons and all these things. But the point of that is, if they hem-haw on it, if they stammer on it, they're not ready for an audit right now.
Mm-hmm.
The factory should be ready for an audit within a half hour.
Okay.
Just like that. You should be able to flip it in 30 or 40 minutes.
And that same note for like, I feel like tech jobs, marketing jobs, office jobs is if you can find a way to kind of creatively ask about the company culture.
Yeah.
And there's many different ways. Like the way I usually used to do it was, I'm used to working with teams with high turnover, and I'm really good at picking up the slack and the likes. Is that something I can kind of anticipate coming into this? Because I like to be the golden boy. I like to do good work, and I want you to know that you can trust me. Is how I phrase that shit. And then if they're like, also an unacceptable answer is, well, we were up until recently. They still are.
Yeah, I like the way that you phrase that question, because it's almost like using their playbook against them. Yeah. Being like, "Hey, I'm on your side. This is something I expect. Prove me wrong." And they're like, "Yep." Oh, okay, cool. So there is high turnover. You admit it.
So I want
Here's
double.
A question, man. Is it fun or is it annoying that we have to be semi-professional psychoanalysts to navigate this weird world that we're in? I think it's kind of interesting, but I also grew up incredibly introverted, borderline autistic, probably, where like I was I had to observe people I still do it to this day. I just don't do it to such a degree that I used to, but like I would pay attention, like, oh, well, he's got his shoes tied this way. He's got his,
Uh-huh.
he's got one strap on his bag, not two straps. Like, it was
Yeah.
such little weird details that I would notice in the popular kids, and I would try to represent or replicate in myself.
Mm-hmm.
Where the fuck was I going with that? It was
Were we thrilled with the
Applying it to
idea?
interview.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's because I grew up playing Nancy Drew, and honestly, I could write like a whole article about how Nancy Drew prepared me to be a good worker, if we want to talk about indoctrination.
That could be
But
interesting.
checklists, solving problems, interviewing people.
Shit.
If you've ever played the point and click adventure game, Nancy Drew from Her Interactive, I love the series. It's
Yeah.
wonderful. Still play them to this day. But yeah, I've always seen myself as kind of like an amateur detective, and carrying that over into the workplace. It is fun for me to play that, but it is exhausting to have that mental load currently and always running in the background,
It's high risk.
which leads, yeah,
It's
it leads to burnout. It leads to overwhelm. It leads to everything. Yeah.
because
leads to me losing my place 2 times in an episode. Oh,
well, and it's like in all this stuff too. The best groups I worked with were always the ones that were straightforward and honest.
Yeah.
Like I remember, one of the best hotel managers I ever worked with went by the name of Gil. Gave me the gem of, Colin, if I get caught with my pants down, it's because I'm the one pulling them down. He was a great guy. We sat down and he was like, "What's your experience? I worked at this fancy hotel over here. Can you dumb it down for a 3-star property? Yes. Are you good at sales? Yes. You want to start next week? Yes. Done. Easy." Like, that was the
Beautiful.
best working relationship I had. He and I would yell at each other and get salty with each other, and then immediately be like, "Hey, I'm gonna go get coffee. You want me to get you something?" "Yeah, okay, all this. Okay, cool. Thanks, boss." No, it was still professional. We were respectful of each other, but we were real, and I would prefer that over this, like, "I've come bringing the monthly
Yeah.
numbers. Here,
Yeah.
we are in the green."
The
Like,
song and dance. Yeah.
oh yeah. This was a hell of an enlightening episode. We definitely went over it a little bit, but it was good shit.
Yeah.
I found
Yeah.
out I was a bad guy. Something.
I'll send the
No.
bill for that therapy session later.
Oh man, you might have to. I'll
We need
send
Frank.
it to my insurance. Bad news for me, I have United.
Aw.
They're gonna send you a toaster for your therapy.
Oh,
I hope they send the water too, because Jesus Christ.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, shall we wrap it there?
Senor.
All right.
See?
Bye, all y'all kind people who are watching.
yay! Thank you.